Hey, what's up? It's your Monday episode of Locked on Raptors. Sean with you here as always. And on today's show, much like the NBA, as COVID powers through and takes over the NBA, we're just trudging on through, putting our head through the wall. And we're going to talk about the Raptors game against the Golden State Warriors on Saturday, which was, I think what you expect against a limited Warriors team who sent all their good players home before having to cross the border. But we'll dig into how Scottie Barnes looked, the season Fred VanVleet's putting together. We got the dude of the game to hand out as well. That's all coming up on today's show with Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com. Thanks for being here.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1081. Yeah, that's what it is of Locked On Raptors for Monday, December the 20th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter as always at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors, where you can find links to every single episode of the podcast. And of course, you can follow, rate, review, all that good stuff. And it's free on all your favorite podcast platforms to engage with and support the podcast. So please go ahead and do that on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Odyssey, all the different apps. Plus, you can subscribe on YouTube, and we love you when you do that. So please go and smack that big red button. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. It is daily fantasy made easy. Check out PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks, once again, is daily fantasy made easy. All right, on today's show, we are talking about the Raptors game against the Golden State Warriors on Saturday and everything that surrounds it, because we can't really talk about the NBA or the Raptors in sort of a vacuum, because it's not happening within a vacuum, and COVID is ravaging the league. Most players, if not all, seem asymptomatic, which is very good as Omicron becomes the dominant strain and all of that. But on today's show, we're going to dig into that game against the Warriors. What can we actually take from it? Talk about Scottie Barnes. We're going to talk about Fred VanVleet. We got the dude of the game and all of that with Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com. Big V, how's it going, pal?
Not bad, not bad. Hopefully, what you're saying continues to maintain itself, that Omicron isn't, while more transmissible, isn't as potent, and we can continue our path towards some level of normalcy. But yeah, other than that, it was a pretty good weekend overall. Just relaxed, nothing. Obviously with the game being postponed, the Raptors game being postponed today, I didn't have as much prep work to do. So
yeah,
here we are, ready to podcast.
Yeah, there's a reason we're going a little bit later in the day. Typically, if Monday were a game day, we try to get this up kind of early. But what are we worried about timeliness for? The Raptors don't play tonight because the Orlando Magic have an outbreak, and I guess they couldn't rally together their 9 replacement players they signed in time to cross the border or something. It's all very weird, man. Before we dive into the game against the Warriors, we'll talk Scottie Barnes again. I want to dig into how freaking fun he was. This seems like we do that every day on the podcast, but how much are you drawing from these games right now in terms of things that actually matter? Because half these teams are missing half their players. Obviously, there's been postponements. There's guys in and out of the lineup. The Raptors, of course, have Pascal Siakam and Delano Banton in the protocols now, too, which was a bit of a bummer before Saturday's game, of course, for multiple reasons, not the least of which that, hey, they almost had their full team together, and then they didn't have the full team together, which was kind of a kick in the teeth. But are you pulling anything from these games at all, man? Is there anything that matters long-term that you're pulling from any of these games where the Raptors opponent is entirely depleted on account of COVID or sort of paranoia around COVID?
I think overarching takeaways, it's probably really hard to do. Even with Scottie Barnes, yeah, the passing was awesome. It's nice to get him as many reps on ball as possible, but how many of those passes actually get through if Draymond Green is in the middle of the defense, right?
All of them, obviously.
So things like that, you got to take with a grain of salt. So yeah, it's more when I'm watching that game, I'm looking at, okay, what does OG Anunoby look like in his first game back? How willing is he to push himself to the maximum? And we saw, maybe a couple plays, there was that one deflection that he caused that they called the foul, but it was nice to see that instinct for him to just go burst for the ball and it didn't look like he was thinking about anything. So I think those are the types of takeaways that I'm making right now. Precious Achiuwa returning to the lineup. What does that look like? And, as far as big picture is concerned, I'm just thinking, hey, okay, if, Pascal is back, what is the starting five? Like now that becomes a real conversation, right? Because we've sort of held it in theory and all that. And obviously it's going to be a very fluid situation with, seemingly every day there being a new update. But those are kind of the takeaways I'm having right now, as opposed to, hey, how real is this, move that Scottie Barnes pulled off, or how real is this fadeaway, by OG going up against Chris Chiozza, right? Like stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. It is a lot more sort of micro stuff, looking at how specific guys are kind of performing and executing their roles, and that's cool. As far as like the game against the Warriors goes, when it comes to takeaways, I feel like Scottie Barnes is probably the place to start, even though, like you said, maybe a bit of an easier environment for him to kind of go off than it would have been against a regular team. But I mean, he seems to be going off against everybody lately. He is, in fairness, the last three teams he's played has been the depleted Warriors, the depleted Nets, and then the Kings, who are depleted always because they're the Kings. So take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. But he's looked really good over the last week. And within a week, we talked last week about where Scottie was and sort of the leveling up, and is he going to move into a position where he's kind of becoming more of the centerpiece of the team? Within a week, I have gone from, ease him in, take some time, to, all right, just let him shoot 47 times a game and have a 38% usage, because he's amazing, and that's all I want to watch is him with the ball in his hands. Like some pretty special stuff. Obviously, you got to take the opponent into consideration, as you mentioned, but pretty special looking stuff against the Warriors on Saturday in terms of the playmaking. He had 14 potential assists per NBA.com in this game, ends up with just the 6. Whole lot of bricks on the end of his beautiful cross-court passes. But overall thoughts on, Scottie's sort of seemingly becoming more emboldened to have the ball in his hands. There's going to be this struggle, I think, with having hopefully the full complement of players available and figuring out who gets their touches where and when. But where are you at in the sort of unleash Scottie meter? Are you still on the sort of reserved, just do what they, kind of do it within the flow of the team? Or are you just sell out and make him the heliocentric force of the entire roster? Obviously it's probably somewhere in between, but where are you at on the whole idea of unleashing Scottie Barnes to be something more than a guy who carries a 19% usage?
Yeah, I say, give the keys to the car, the house, the yacht, everything to Scottie. And kind of talked about this the last podcast, right? Where it's I don't think there's too much that you can put on him, and I don't think the Raptors should be looking at treating him like a rookie. And this goes back to what Fred VanVleet has said about constantly being on him and pushing him towards greatness, right? Don't, have a game and be like, oh, it's okay, you're a rookie, there's a rookie wall, this and that. No, you're Scottie freaking Barnes. You can be one of the best players in this league. And the sooner you get there, the sooner, this team is going to be at a level that is going to be very, very dangerous. So yeah, I'm all in on Scottie. So the big, if there is an overarching takeaway to take away from these last few games, it is the fact that he's embracing that, right? And I think maybe before, where he's got that unselfish bone in him and he's saying, okay, I got to defer to OG, I got to defer to Fred. I think we're seeing more and more of, hey, the team obviously sees me as something special, and I got to prove that I'm worth that recognition and praise and all of that every time I'm on the floor.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been kind of lauded as this wildly unselfish player, right? There's the story that Mike Schmitz told on Zach Lowe's podcast about how he was asking if assists would count as points when he was asked in a coaching drill to go score 25. He's obviously tried to make the right play basically his entire rookie season as well, and that led to maybe a bit of passiveness when it came to putting up threes and whatnot. But the thing is if he leans into this sort of like killer instinct, I'm the guy with the ball and everything's going to flow through me kind of my mentality, that's only going to open up more opportunity for him to be wildly unselfish, right? Because he's starting to draw 2 defenders now. People are realizing, oh, no one can stop this guy inside 8 feet. He has perfect touch. He just knows where to go. He's got like the sort of whole bag and repertoire of moves. He's finishing through contact, as he did a couple times pretty beautifully against the Warriors as well. And once teams start adjusting and realizing, okay, this guy's such a load inside, we have to send to his way, that's going to open up the playmaking in a way I don't think we've even seen yet so far. And that's going to scratch that itch that he has to go and throw cool-ass passes all the time. I am like very much on board with just – and look, this is going to be difficult to balance. We could talk about this in just a second. But, like, put him – if not at the top of the hierarchy, put him on the same level of hierarchy as Siakam and VanVleet to me. And, you know, OG, I think maybe slides back down into more of a secondary role. I think that's fine because he's damn good at it and has like the juice to kind of take that role and expand upon it with some extra sort of on the ball stuff. But like Scottie Barnes to me is like top of the hierarchy or close to it for this Raptors team right now. As much as I think Pascal Siakam is awesome and I think Fred VanVleet's having an incredible season, which we're also going to talk about coming up here, I think like sky's the limit with what you're seeing from Barnes. And I think it's very clear he has the highest ceiling of anybody. So why wait? Just start rolling the ball out to him and saying, all right, you're running, you know, X number of possessions a game more than you were before because we trust that you can do it and that it's going to lead to good things because of your playmaking and also your ability to score wherever you want, basically. God, he's fun. We're going to continue on, and I want to dig into the fit as OG comes back. Hopefully Siakam's back soon too here as well. Still no word on where he's at in terms of the COVID protocols process, but it's a very interesting time to be a Raptors fan and to be watching this team coming in together because hopefully soon they're going to have that full complement of guys, and figuring out how it all fits together is a really fascinating puzzle to sort out. We'll get to that in one sec here, but first I want to tell you about our friends over at Truebill. And look, Truebill is here to stop companies from scamming you by not canceling your free trials or your one-off sort of subscriptions that you want for 1 month, but you can't get out of afterwards that you forgot about. All of that, Truebill is here to make it easy to get out of those subscriptions you no longer want to be a part of and take control of your life. Once again, Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you no longer want, need, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And you have the Truebill concierge on hand to cancel those unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to as well. I do this all the time. I sign up for a thing for 1 month, forget about it, and then boom, I'm paying for something I don't need for a year or longer because I'm a fool and I forget about it each month until that payment comes around once again because I'm a fool. But Truebill is literally foolproof. I'm proof. I use it now, and I'm getting out of subscriptions that I no longer want or need. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now to Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. We continue on here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com on your first listen of the day. And Vivek, before we get to Fred VanVleet, because I want to talk to you about him a little bit because he's awesome and had a great game against the Warriors. Quickly on the fitting of OG Anunoby back into the lineup. We have only seen, I believe, 2 games this season with the main 5 best players on the team available, right? The guys I think everyone kind of has established as the best 5 guys. You've got VanVleet, Anunoby, Siakam, Barnes, and Gary Trent Jr. And hopefully sometime soon here, we're going to see that lineup back intact, you know, providing Siakam's able to return relatively quickly here from the protocols. We're not sure if it's a positive test, if it's abundance of caution, all that stuff. It's all kind of ethereal at this point. But when that does happen, are you concerned at all about the fit now that you've kind of seen Scottie Barnes level up his sort of on-ball importance and what he can do with the ball in his hands and is sort of demanding a little bit more in terms of responsibility? And, you know, we saw in those first couple games that Siakam was back. The fit was a little bit clunky. That was to be expected, I think. And I think like we've seen so far, the Barnes, Anunoby, Siakam trio should make sense, much as the Barnes, Anunoby, and Barnes, Siakam duos have. But there's a lot of touches to go around. Gary Trent Jr. is out there bombing up shots as well. Fred VanVleet's been incredible and the best player on the team so far. It poses to be a bit of a difficult thing to sort out, although it does feel like one of them good problems.
It's a good problem for sure. especially if we can actually actualize that and have them all out there on the court. But I think in terms of the fit, what's going to be really important is, when Siakam returned, there was a lot of conversation about Scottie Barnes needs to shoot threes so that he can help space the floor for Pascal Siakam. And now, in terms of Scottie Barnes' ceiling, you almost have to you have to ask the opposite. Can Siakam space the floor as Barnes is in those post-up opportunities or whenever he's on ball in general? And the same applies to OG Anunoby. Obviously, OG is a bit more proven, a lot more proven from three, I would say. And so I'm not concerned about him. And so that would be the fit question for me. I'm not as concerned about, each of them getting their touches because I feel like they're all pretty unselfish and they all work off each other well.
And there's only 5 guys on the team who do anything anyway. So
exactly. So that distribution of wealth, I'm not too concerned about. But yeah, in terms of the actual spacing, what that looks like, that is, I think, going to be the ultimate decider in, hey, is Gary Trent Jr. a viable starter, or do you have to go, or, is there enough spacing and offensive cohesion to allow Khem Birch to be the starter and maybe, juice up some of that rebounding that's desperately needed?
Yeah, that's fair. I still maintain start the small lineup and go with your 5 best guys once everything returns to normal, hopefully, and then figure it out from there. Maybe there'll be some matchups where you don't want to go, but the way Scottie Barnes has kind of evolved defensively, and I've made this point a few times in the last week or so, I feel so much better about that small ball lineup now, considering it feels like he can play that center role, that backline cleanup role that he wasn't able to do before. He's very good. God, I can't get over how much Scottie Barnes rules, man. Okay, I have a couple parlor game questions I want to ask you in this episode. So forgive me for if this ends up going long, but with Scottie, I'm trying to think of how many Raptors players I've enjoyed watching more over the years. And it's not a long list. Are there any that come to mind as that guy definitely I liked watching more than Scottie Barnes? Because maybe Vince Carter during the Vinsanity years, and Kyle Lowry obviously during some of his more incredible seasons where he's putting the team on his back. Definitely for me. But after that, Scottie's dangerously close to being one of my favorite Raptors to watch of all time. And he's played 26 games. It's absurd.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question in the way that you're asking it, which is, just flat out, which Raptor do you enjoy watching? I think the thing I enjoy the most about Scottie is watching him figure it out. Right. Yeah. And I think that's where, if I were to compare, say, when, the light bulb seemed to go off for DeMar DeRozan, or, when Chris Bosh first started getting those KG comparisons, and it was hey, how is that matchup going to go? I think those are, what the young guy figuring it out. Those are the moments that I remember the most. And so I'd put those 3 pretty close together in terms of just watching Scottie Barnes as a player. Yeah, it's up there because again, for me, I didn't come to Canada until 2002, so I didn't get to really watch Vince in his heyday on a night-to-night basis.
Oh, you got the depression years. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I came and it was hey, what's going on with the parking spot, and why does he not want to dunk anymore?
Why are they winning 18 of 19 while he's sidelined to make the playoffs?
Yeah. That's the Vince I got. So it's hard for me to talk about that. So yeah, I think in terms of just watching him as a player, I would say he's as fun as it gets. I think with Kyle, we came to really, really have fun with the charges and all of that. But I would say that's almost like a respect thing.
Sure.
Scottie, there's that entertainment value that maybe is higher than anyone else's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's unbelievably cool. The closest I think I can think of for me in recent years of just a guy doing his thing that is enjoyable to take in, probably when Marc Gasol was at his very best for the team, both defensively, just kind of shutting everything down and changing the defense on the fly like an amorphous blob of terror. And then on the other side, just like kind of working as that hub offensively. We didn't ever see like peak Grizzlies Gasol with the Raptors outside of a couple of games here and there. Games like 3 and 4 against the Bucks kind of stand out as those like peak Gasol games. But when he was on, and like his first game with the Raptors was kind of like this, where it was kind of like an out of body experience where for the first time you're seeing a center kind of run your offense, and he's throwing like behind the back bounce passes to Norm Powell and stuff. That was pretty cool. And that's kind of the vibe I get from Scottie Barnes because of like he throws no look passes every night. He is funky and weird and kind of gets to his spots in a bizarre way, but does it. And he also is just like so physically imposing. It just, you feel like you're watching a guy who's 7'3" out there. It's a delight, man. There's nothing else to really say about it. We're going
quickly
long here. Go ahead.
I just want to shout out, in terms of unbelievably cool to just watch, low key, Anthony Parker was just like really cool to watch.
I think this is the second week in a row Anthony Parker's gotten some extra love on the podcast, which is, very, very deserved. I think we talked about him on Friday with the mailbag question about underappreciated old Raptors. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We got to talk about Fred VanVleet because he's had a really, really incredible season, was amazing against the Warriors on Saturday as well. He didn't have to guard Steph Curry the whole game, so he was just freed up to punk the Warriors offensively, which is fun. We'll talk about that, and then we'll quickly hand out the due to the game at the end of the show. We'll get to that in 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who are making the best tasting protein bars money can buy. The holiday season is here, baby, and it's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and in some cases, even better than a candy bar. Plus, you get the best of both worlds. It's both delicious and healthy. You get a ton of flavors to choose from raspberry or mint brownie to some of their limited time flavors that appear on the site, including, I think, caramel macchiato is one that's out there right now. You got to hop on that. It gives you the extra food you need to get through your tiresome trips to go see family, the walk in the malls and all that stuff as well. Built Bar is there to power you on through. And, of course, it's a wonderful little stocking stuffer, too, as well. If you don't want to wrap your gifts, just give them something that's already wrapped. It's a wrapped Built Bar. It's a beautiful thing to uncover in the morning. And maybe you got some hot cocoa going on Christmas morning, and you want to use that Built Bar that you've been gifted as like an extra treat or a vessel for your treat. You can dip that Built Bar right in your hot chocolate, and that is going to make it nice, melty, and delicious. It's the kind of delicious, sweet treat you don't have to feel so bad about. Plus, if you like some of those marshmallowy treats around the holidays as well, you can get a Built Bar Puff. They're light, they're fluffy, they're marshmallowy through and through. They have different flavors, all covered in chocolate, and they all taste so good you won't believe they're also filled with protein. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Once again, that's Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. And today's show is brought to you by betonline.ag, who has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues its march towards the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. You can head to the new updated desktop or mobile website and sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, so we got due to the game to get to in a sec here, Vivek, to round out the show, but we should first talk about Fred VanVleet, who had 27 points and 12 assists against the Warriors on Saturday and brings himself now up to a season line of 20.1 points. He is at 6. Oh, come on, Basketball Reference. Don't do this to me now. 6.7 assists, 5.1 boards, 1.6 steals, over half a block. He's shooting 39.7% from three on 8.5 attempts a game. He's a knockdown shooter if there ever was one. He's, of course, finishing around the basket more efficiently. His on-off numbers are absurd. He's just been so good top to bottom. Right now, his on-off numbers, when he's on the floor for the Raptors, they're a plus 5.2 points per 100 possessions. When he is off the floor, they are a minus 12.1. That is a 17.3 on-off split for Fred VanVleet. He's been ridiculous. Vivek, a question I have for you. The season he's putting in right now, all those numbers, he also has the best true shooting percentage on the entire team as one of the highest usage guys, which is bloody amazing as well. It's been a remarkable season for Fred VanVleet from every perspective, the advanced stats, the counting stats, and all of that. Of all of the seasons we saw from Kyle Lowry during his time with the Raptors, How many of those seasons would you take ahead of the season that Fred VanVleet is putting in right now? Because that's how good he's been. He's in that conversation. He's putting himself on the Lowry tier in terms of seasons from a point guard for the Raptors in the last decade, which is maybe a weird niche sort of cutoff point. But hey, we're talking about two guys here. Like, where are you at with how good this Fred season's been? Would you take that many Kyle seasons over what he's done so far? He's been that good.
He has been incredible. I mean, I think the load that he's had to carry, and you talked about it, the fact that the usage has had to go up, he's dealt with the absences of OG with Siakam, and he's just had to be, steady Freddy and just, keep their head above water. I mean, they're right there flirting with the 500 mark. They're right there for the play-in tournament. Mm-hmm. And he's a huge part of that. So, yeah, he's been sensational in terms of Kyle Lowry seasons. I'm thinking, obviously, 15, 16, and 16, 17 were just ridiculous Kyle Lowry seasons. So those two for sure. 2019, 20 is right there as well. Him with the the ring swag was just an unbelievable, like that might be, when you talk about favorite players to watch, like that version of Kyle Lowry might have been my favorite. Like, it just seemed like there was such a release from having won the championship, and it was like, no one can talk to me now. And and so, yeah, those three seasons for sure. Is there another one? I think the 13-14 season is right there. Because I think that's sort of a fun one with the turnaround after the trade. And it was like the first season that we like really came to love Kyle Lowry.
Sure.
So I would say those four. I don't know which other ones you would throw into the mix.
Yeah, so per the numbers, I pulled up some stats here to prepare for the podcast because I'm a good host. Right now, Fred VanVleet is on track for 8.4 win shares this season. He's at 3.0 through 28 games, 8.4 if you extrapolate it out over the course of the full season. That would actually be kind of in line with where he was on a per-game basis back in 2019-20, where he had a 5.8 win share season and 54 games played. So good on him for that. But Fred, very much in the same sort of range right now. As maybe my math is off on that one, but I'm pretty sure maybe he was a little bit ahead, closer to 9. Whatever. I'm bad at math is the thing. Either way, he's on track for 8.4 win shares this season. That would be behind only 4 of Kyle Lowry's seasons. All 4 of these Lowry seasons were 10 or higher win share seasons. You've got 13, 14, 15, 16, 16, 17, and then 17, 18. With 16, 17, by the way, being, I still maintain, the best Kyle Lowry has ever looked as a basketball player before getting hurt at the All-Star break. He should have been All-NBA that season. He was unbelievable and had 10.1 win shares in 60 games. Just ridiculous stuff. Would have been by far his number 1 win share season had he not gotten hurt. Anyway, beyond that,
those are the two. That season and the 1920. The fact that he didn't make All NBA is just criminal. Like,
I think I would take. Yeah, he made All NBA in 15-16 as well. That's the one he's made. He should have 3, I would say. At least I agree. I think for me, I would take 15, 16, 16-17, and then 19-20 for sure over the season Fred's doing right now, and probably that first season 13-14 where they got good just because of the novelty of them becoming good and Lowry being so essential to it. But after that, I know he was better technically in 17-18, but that felt more like a DeMar season to me. And I don't really associate that being as like a Kyle Lowry sort of putting the team on his back type season, whereas Fred is doing that this year. So even if it's on track to come in lower win shares wise, I think I would take this Fred season over 17-18 Lowry. But it kind of speaks to how freaking good he's been that we're having this conversation at all, because like I feel like there was this sort of assumption that most of what Kyle did was untouchable, but maybe it's not. And what Fred's doing right now is like very clearly all-star level stuff. Like, do you think he's going to get in? It's tough, but like he's played a lot of games, which is an asset so far with whatever the hell's going on this year. And if the Raptors are going to win at this like 500-ish clip and be in the play-in, maybe there's a chance. I didn't think it was terribly likely considering just how deep the East is, but I'm changing my tune on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think when I was trying to break it down the other day, and I feel like for the final spot, he would be battling Darius Garland for the final guard spot. He would be Garland and Drew Holiday. And I think for the Bucks, especially missing Giannis, Middleton, not sure how long he's out for. Holiday had that 40-point night the other night, even though they lost. If he can kind of go on the tear and keep them where they are in the standings, then I think he might get in there. But I think he has a legit shot. Like, going up against Garland, it's going to be a question of, does Cleveland potentially get 2 All-Stars with, I assume that Jared Allen would be the first one. Yeah. So it'd be those types of conversations. But I think, yeah, it would be a very, very close call. I think what's interesting now that, we did this season's comparison with Lowry, I think an interesting question to ask is how quickly can this team get to a level where he can be 18-19 Lowry,
right?
Where Fred is looking at OG and Scottie and Pascal and saying, okay, I can kind of just, tee these guys up.
You guys eat. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when Kawhi sits out the second night of a back-to-back or whatever it is, I'll go full Kyle. Right.
Sure.
And so how quickly can this team get to that point? Because I think he'd be fine with doing that. Let's not forget, at the start of the season when Siakam was out and OG was available, they were like, hey, OG's the number 1 option. And OG was the leading scorer for the team when he got injured, right?
Yep.
And then Fred has said, okay, I've got to, take over here. And he's done that extremely well. So I think that is probably, when this team is getting much closer to its ceiling, when he's sort of able to just take a step back and just, sprinkle in, his sort of nuclear moments as and when the team needs.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of go to the point we were talking about earlier in the sort of difficulty of making sure everyone gets all their looks and you're kind of satiating everyone across the board once you're healthy, Fred kind of taking the step back and being the guy to tee everyone else up feels like the avenue by which you achieve that egalitarian sort of number 1 option thing. And, as much as Fred is great and has been having a wonderful season and is putting up incredible numbers and is, again, been very much all-star worthy, the version of the team where he is sort of, the 4th option offensively, but is still kind of the straw that stirs the drink, is probably the optimized version of this team. And we'll see how long that takes to kind of come to fruition. But as far as guys I'm looking at potentially losing looks in lieu of Scottie Barnes kind of ratcheting up, I think it's probably Fred who's going to take that sort of hit to his look. But I don't think he's going to be upset about that because he just seems like a dude who wants to make the team win lots of games. By the way, he's also like an extreme coach's pick guy, like very coach's pick energy for the All-Star game. Like it's just,
and that would be the ultimate passing of the torch, right?
Yeah,
for to take over for Kyle and then get the coach's pick to get in, right? Like that would just be perfect.
Get the annual Eric Spoelstra. I just love this guy for all he does, or whatever. Yeah, just he's been very, very good. Hopefully, Eric Spoelstra's team doesn't poach Fred VanVleet in the future. Let's move it now to a quick due to the game to close out the show. Not a terribly loaded category for this one because I think Scottie Barnes and Fred VanVleet were the reasons they won the game against the Warriors, and they were too good and star-like to be dudes of the game, I think. But you have made your selection. Who is it, and detail why?
Yeah, first off, I'll give a quick shout out to Precious Achua because I thought it was a lot of fun and had a solid game. But I am going to give the due to the game to Yuta Watanabe. I thought an
absolute stud of the due to the game leaderboard, has played 10 games and has now been due to the game 4 times. Tied for the lead, the team lead for the season in just 10 games. Unbelievable stuff. Duda Watanabe.
And Yuta Watanabe. He had that monster block on Gary Payton II. He had that fun dunk as well. And so I think the one thing I'm interested to see now, it's one thing to say, hey, Utah, can you be aggressive enough over, 25 minutes that you're playing versus, hey, if everyone's healthy, can you be aggressive enough over 15 minutes, right? And it might be easier for him to do the latter. And so if you can get that Utah in, whatever it is, 10, 15 minutes a game when everyone's healthy, then I think you're in a good place, because I think you're seeing the confidence come back. Initially, obviously, he had to get his legs back and everything, but you're seeing him take shots when he's open. You'd like to see him make more of those wide open ones, make some free throws. But other than that, no complaints, man. Defensively, he's everywhere. He's everywhere at the right time, which is the big thing. And then offensively, he's always moving, trying to screen or cut or do whatever he can to help the team.
Yep, I never feel bad when Utah is on the floor. Let's put it that way. And other than Justin Champagnie being number one in personal on-court net rating, Utah is number 2 on the team at plus 5.7. They are, when he is off the floor, 0.9. Those are kind of cloudy because he didn't play the first 10 games. But when they're on the floor, they're beating teams pretty comfortably at the rate of like a 50-something win team. So you love to see it. Utah rocks, and very clearly the dude of the game. And a real juggernaut. I think if you're putting money, we'll ask Bet Online if they can put the money, the lines on this for the future here. But I think if you're betting on who's going to be top of the dude of the game leaderboard by season's end, Utah feels like the guy who's going to be the first ever dude of the game world champion at season's end. But yeah, we can leave it there for now. Big V, thanks so much for popping on, man. There's lots to dive into here. I think we did it pretty all right. And we'll continue on talking about the basketball as though nothing else horrible is going on as the season goes along here, as the week goes along here. Of course, no game to talk about tonight. The next Raptors game will be on Wednesday, hopefully against the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls played last night, I think, and they seem like they're getting some guys back. DeMar had 38 last night. Yes, they did. They very much played last night. DeMar rocks. So we will talk about that and preview that game. We're also going to talk tomorrow with Jamar Hines. He's going to come on the podcast. Not sure what we're going to hit on just yet, but we will talk about something of general interest. And I think Katie Heindel will come on sometime this week for some sort of holiday-themed episode as well. So that's what you have to look forward to this week. We will talk to you again tomorrow. But Vivek, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Just the usual stuff. I mean, hey, if you haven't seen my exclusive interview with Layla Fernandez and her dad for
Hell yeah,
CBC Sports yet,
wholesome stuff, baby. Go do it.
There you go. Go do that. Other than that, just the usual stuff for Raptors and Complex. And you can follow me on Twitter at Vivek M. Jacob. And I assume I won't be on until after the holidays. So happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah, same to you, buddy. Thanks for being on, as always. And we'll talk to you very, very soon, of course. And for the listeners out there, you can find me at Woodley Sean on Twitter. You can subscribe, rate, review, free on all your favorite podcast platforms and on YouTube to this podcast. It's very appreciated when you go ahead and do that. As I mentioned, Jamar Hines is going to be back on tomorrow to recreate the doomed episode we lost to poor microphone quality on my end last week. So looking forward to Jamar getting back on the show, and then Katie Heindel will come on later this week, I'm sure, as well. As we got holiday themed, and I've just teased the whole week again. I don't need to do that. I can just land the plane. How about I do that? We'll talk to you again tomorrow. In the meantime, go listen to Locked On Bets and make it your second listen of the day as your boy Q and Lee Sterling are guiding you through all of the crazy lines at play during this very strange COVID-ridden period on the sports calendar. They are still there to help you out through it all. And with that, we will leave you there. We'll talk to you tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.